Dear learners, I welcome you all to this lecture on justice. So far, we have discussed basic concepts to understand human rights, which included liberty and equality. After discussing liberty and equality, we are going to discuss justice. We have already discussed in our previous classes that liberty, equality, justice, and rights are interrelated and they overlap, and that is why they are the basic concept to understand human rights when we are trying to understand this paper, which is called Understanding Human Rights. So here we go. We have first of all introduction, and then after that meaning and definition of justice, and then some dimensions of justice, then conclusion. So first of all, you see that the term justice is derived from the Latin word justitia, which means to bind or tie together. So when we say that, if you see the origin of the word, it means that justitia in Latin means to bind or tie together. So from this word justitia, you can understand that justice is such an important thing that it binds society together. So if the injustice is there in the society will be facing disruption, turmoil, turbulence, and problems. So that is why, it is having a binding force, and that is very, very important. The meaning of the English word justice is quality of just dealing and conduct. When we say just dealing and conduct, it means that, by what does it mean? That there should be integrity, impartiality, fairness, and righteousness. These are the important things. When we are trying to understand justice, it means that first of all, it is just dealing, it is just conduct. At the same time, it means integrity, impartiality, fairness, and righteousness. When the people are trying to conceptualize or perceive justice, they must feel that the justice system is impartial, it is fair, it is righteous, and the people dispensing justice are having their own personal impeccable integrity as well. We should remember that justice is the ideal upon which a society stands. The very origin of the word we discussed that it has been derived from the Latin word justitia, which means to bind or tie together. So it means justice here, justice is the ideal upon which a society stands. So the ideal of justice is very important. Every society has the ideal of justice. What is fair, what is not fair, what is moral and what is immoral, what is bad and what is good. It all depends upon the ideals of justice that they have in their mind. Again, justice is a precondition for peace. This is also important to understand that these days we talk a lot about international peace and security, or within the countries we talk about national security, peace, and all. But what is to be understood? That justice is a precondition for peace. We say that the peace is a precondition for the enjoyment of rights, but keep in mind that justice is a precondition for peace. If the people feel that gross injustice is there, then the people will not, the people will try to raise their voices, and sometimes they will rise in revolt. So that is why it is rightly said that if you try to suppress the peaceful voices, it may turn into violent voices. So that is why you see this is very important to understand that justice is a precondition for peace. So without justice, peace is not possible. When we talk of peace, we should remember that peace doesn't mean uneasy calm, where the people are not able to speak, or people fear that if they are going to speak, they will be targeted by the establishment. So that is not peace. Peace requires positive conditions under which the people are feeling free, where they can enjoy their liberty without any fear. They can enjoy their rights without any fear. So that is why justice, we are saying that then the society is to be just. A just society is not having that kind of problem, and that is why you see it is said that justice is a precondition for peace, and we say that the peace is a precondition for the enjoyment of rights. Rights and justice are interlinked. We already discussed that liberty, equality, rights and justice, they are interdependent. They supplement and complement each other. So that is why rights and justice are interlinked. For example, your legal right, when we talk of legal rights, then the legal right of a person also demand that there should be legal justice in the society, where there is fairness, where there is equality before law, where the law is equally applied on all the persons. There is no discrimination in the eyes of law. All these things are important. So in this sense, you will find that rights and justice are interlinked. Not only this, but this dimension also we should keep in mind that if the rights are infringed upon, if the rights are violated either by the individual or by the collectivity or by the state, then it is the court, judiciary, that become the guardian of the custodian, or that becomes the guardian of the rights of the people, or what we call the custodian of the rights and liberties of the people. So in this sense, the justice delivery system, that should be quick, it should be responsive, and people must feel that if their rights are being infringed upon, then there is a custodian of rights and liberty of the people which is going to protect them. So that is why in this way you will find that the rights and justice are interlinked, interdependent. According to Barker, the supreme value for a just system of human relations is liberty, equality, and fraternity. I repeat, you see, he says that the supreme value for a just system of human relations is liberty, equality, and fraternity. It means that these can be understood as the three pillars of justice, that is liberty, equality, and fraternity. It means a just political society or a just social system will try to promote liberty, equality, and fraternity. A society which is trying to curtail the freedom of the people, a state which is not trying to maintain equilibrium and equality in the society, where there is no equality of opportunity for all, a society that does not promote the spirit of fraternity, in that kind of society, it will be difficult to enjoy the rights that we have. So that is why a just system demand, the justice can prevail in the society where liberty, equality, and fraternity are respected, promoted, celebrated. Now, the meaning and definitions of liberty, meaning and definitions of justice, how to define it. Like other basic concepts, as we have already discussed, liberty and equality, defining justice is also very, very difficult. It is not easy to define justice. The reason is that justice is not an independent concept. It is to be understood in relation to a society's values, milieux, and ideals. It is not, an independent concept, and this is the reason that it becomes very difficult to define the term justice. And this is the reason that when we go through the books of the Greek political philosophers like Aristotle and Plato, for example, the Plato's Republic, that is trying to define what is justice, and you will find what kind of the definitions of justice were present at that time. Plato follows his own dialectics and tries to expose the contradictions in the prima facie understanding of justice. For example, it was believed by one school of thought that justice is the interest of a stronger. Then you will find another school of thought is saying justice is doing good to friends and bad to enemies. And then thirdly, you will find that justice is giving everybody his due. All these things, this kind of definitions were there. You will also find that the people were there was a school that used to say that injustice is better than justice, depending upon the context and all. So, this kind of prima facie theories of justice were there, many definitions were offered, and finally, Plato comes to the point that you see justice will be there when three faculties, that is reason, spirit, and then appetite, they live, they are coexisting with perfect balance, and there is nothing like what is called the meddlesomeness. Means the spirit is not meddling with auxiliaries. Auxiliaries are not, going to meddle with the affairs of the producers. So that, functional specialization. When the due performance of function by each class in the ideal state will be justice according to Plato. So, it has been problematic, and that is why more than one approach, or you will find more than one definition of justice were prevailing even at that time in the city states. So that is why right from the very beginning, right from the days of the ancient classical Greek political thinkers, you will find defining justice has been a difficult task. And that is why it is said that it is not an independent concept. It is to be understood in relation to a society's values, means, and ideals. And that too, that we find in the Greek city-states, different conceptions and ideals of justice were prevailing. Now, in its broader meaning, justice can be defined in two senses. Number one, in the narrow sense, for example. In the narrow sense, justice is understood with a country's legal system and process. So in the narrow sense, and that is also the layman's understanding of justice, that you will find it is nothing but what kind of legal system and process of delivering justice is there. So, in this way, what happens, it is legal justice that most of the time it is understood in the narrow sense. So what laws are there, how the laws are being implemented, what kind of interpretations are given, and what kind of approach of, the judiciary is there to protect and promote the spirit of laws and all. In its broader sense, or in its broader meaning, justice is viewed in the totality of its social, political, economic, legal, and moral dimensions. So it is not only the legal dimension of justice that is important. In the broader sense, what happens, that justice becomes an ideal. And here you will find that in its broader meaning, justice is viewed in the totality of its social, political, economic, legal, and moral dimensions. Means all the dimensions are important when we are trying to understand. It means that in this sense, justice is identified with truth. What is justice? Justice is truth. And the standard of determination of good and bad, moral and immoral, acceptable and not acceptable conducts of people and their institutions. So in this sense, when we are trying to discuss justice in its broader meaning, and we are taking into account its social, political, economic, legal, and moral dimensions, we should remember that justice is identified with truth, with righteousness, the standard of determination of good and bad, moral and immoral, acceptable and not acceptable conducts of people and their institutions. For example, there may be a society which is tolerant to intolerance against women, against a particular segment of the population. So it means, that society will try to justify the atrocities or even the unequal relation that is being maintained. For example, in the apartheid constitution of South Africa at that time, what used to happen? That the blacks were discriminated against. Similarly, you will find the ethics when the society is not egalitarian, and when it is trying to promote the interest of one race, one community, one class, that will create problem. So therefore, what is the standard of determination of good and bad? What is considered as good and what is considered as bad? For example, violence against women. In many societies, that may accept it, but there are, other societies, they will not accept it. Similarly, so that these dimensions you have to, in some societies, you'll find polyandry may be justified. In some societies, you'll find that the polygamy may be justified. In some societies, it is monogamy that will be acceptable. So, these things that you have to see, it all depends upon. So, that is why it is a holistic concept where you have to take into account all these factors. Plato and Aristotle viewed justice in this sense, in this broader sense, they used to view justice. In its broader meaning, justice is perceived in two ways. And, not only that, the points that we were trying to understand, justice in its broader meaning, here you'll find justice is also understood in two ways in its broader meaning, and that is, number one, justice is absolute, eternal, universal, infallible, and unchangeable. That justice is universal according to this view, and it is absolute, eternal, infallible, and unchangeable. So there is one standard of justice that is for all the people. So it is perpetual. It is not going to change. It will remain same. The religious traditions believe in this view of justice. All the religious traditions, because all the religions, they emphasize universalism. They go beyond the parochial national boundaries, or they go beyond parochial nationalism. So that is why all the religions of the world, they emphasize universalism. So that is why the religious traditions believe in this view of justice, that justice is absolute, eternal, perpetual, universal, infallible, and unchangeable. Among the political thinkers, you will find Plato, Augustine, and Aquinas supported this view of justice. Of course, Plato was an idealist. He supported this view of justice. You will find Augustine, Saint Augustine, who was also known as Christianized Plato. Saint Thomas Aquinas, who is also known as Christianized Aristotle. So these thinkers, they supported this view of justice, that justice is absolute, eternal, perpetual, universal, infallible, and unchangeable. Justice is relative, the second sense, justice is relative and differs from society to society. So one view that was held by the religious traditions, and also you'll find the thinkers like Plato, Augustine, and Aquinas supported this view of justice. Now the another view of justice, that is also the broader meaning of justice, we can understand in the light of that justice is relative and differs from society to society. It keeps changing with changes in a society's perceptions, values, and needs. This is again giving us some hint on the different standard of justice that we find in the different parts of the world. So justice is relative and differs from society to society. For example, you see there are many societies in the world, those who have, according to their own values and according to their own challenges and needs, they have legitimized through their laws what is called live-in relation. They have legitimized what is called lesbian and gay inclinations and the lesbian and gay marriages. But there are societies, they have not recognized, rather they have criminalized these inclinations. So, both the things, and they all will justify this. So, justice is relative and differs from society to society. It keeps on changing with changes in our society's perceptions, values, and needs. Who are the thinkers who have supported this view? Aristotle, Bentham, and Mill support this view of justice, that justice is relative and differs from society to society, and it keeps changing with changes in a society's perceptions, values, and needs. Another important aspect, when we are trying to understand the meaning of justice, we have to understand that there are other dimensions. Every society, it may be relative or absolute. That is a very different debate whether the justice is absolute, universal, or relative, and keeps on changing. But one thing is sure for sure, that every society or every country has the two aspects of justice: the distributive and the retributive. Distributive justice is often understood in the context of the fairness in the distribution of values in the society. So, when the state is trying to authoritatively allocate values among the citizens, means what is called the distribution of wealth, resources, power, honor, offices, all these things. So, how fair it is? The state, whether the state is going to usurp the rights of some segments of the population, it is going to follow a discriminatory kind of foreign policy, discriminatory kind of policy under which, because of which, many communities are going to be marginalized, or many communities are going to be socially excluded, or it is fair in its distribution process. So that distributive justice is very, very important to maintain peace and equilibrium in the society. When a state fails to deliver distributive justice, that state may face social tension, social unrest, and turmoil and turbulence. And that's why Aristotle says that inequality is the mother of all revolutions. So you see that equality is to be promoted, and again, the distributive justice is also related with equality, the principle of equality and non-discrimination. Now, after that, retributive justice. That if something wrong has been done, then there must be, punishment for that. So, what is there? For example, it is also called restorative justice, where if the rights or liberties of somebody has been infringed upon, then it is to be restored. And this is possible only when punishment and reward both are there in the society. So all the societies, you will find punishment and reward they have. Whether even the religious tradition, they also talk of punishment and reward. So that is why what kind of reward is being given, how the resources, wealth, and honor and offices are being distributed in a particular society, and what kind of punitive actions are going to be taken when there is infringement upon the rights of others. The utilitarian, egalitarian, libertarian, and theological views of justice, these are also important. The utilitarian thinkers, they believed, utilitarian like James Mill, Jeremy Bentham, they believed in, according to them, justice must promote what is called the greatest happiness of the greatest number. We should remember that, the utilitarian principle is based on hedonistic ideas. It means man by nature wants to avoid pain and achieve pleasure. So achievement of pleasure and avoidance of pain becomes the main goal of life. So this is hedonistic principle. So utilitarianism is based on hedonistic principle, and that is why it prescribes that the state should follow one principle, and that is greatest happiness of the greatest number. After utilitarian, we have egalitarian, concept of justice. And this egalitarian concept of justice is often understood in the context of equality in the society, fairness, equality, and all. In the libertarian, justice, it is liberty that is emphasized. that the liberty of the people should not be curtailed, freedom of the people should not be curtailed. So utilitarian, egalitarian, a libertarian. So first of all, you'll find the hedonistic principle, that is, the avoidance of pain and achievement of pleasure, and then greatest happiness of the greatest number. After that, we have equality being emphasized under egalitarian principle of justice. Then in the libertarian principle of justice, you will find liberty and freedom is being emphasized. And then we have theological views of justice. In the theological view, you will find punishment and reward is there, and you will find in this sense most of the thinkers, those who are coming from that kind of background or the religious tenates, they promote equality before God, in the eyes of God, especially everybody is equal. That most of the religions, especially the religions with egalitarian characteristics. But there may be some other perception as well in many religions who are not egalitarian, or those who believe in hierarchical social structure, that may be also there. But in the theological view, you will find that justice is conceived as perpetual, permanent, universal, and it is for all the people and all the time to come. After this, we have to discuss the dimensions of justice. The dimensions of justice, we have 4 dimensions of justice, that is legal justice, political justice, social justice, and then economic justice. If you read the Constitution of India and its preamble, then justice, political, legal, and economic has been, social, that has been promised, proclaimed. So we find that justice and all its dimensions are important, and here first of all we have to understand what is legal justice. When the equal protection of law and equality before the law is there for all the citizens, it is legal justice. The justice delivery system, whether it is criminal justice system or whether it justice system dealing with the civil matters, it should be quick, it should be responsive, and it should not discriminate on the basis of caste, creed, sex, place of birth. Law should be equally applied on all the people. Laws should be fair. Laws should be laws should be responsive to the problems and challenges of the people. So on the basis of the law and on the basis of the delivery system, the implementation of the law, how the laws are being implemented, what kind of laws are being made, and what is the response of the judiciary, which is often considered as the guardian of the constitution or the law. So all these things will be taken into account in the legal justice. So therefore, if the justice delivery system is such where the poor people are not able to get justice, where it becomes very costly for the poor people to afford the cost of justice, so that is always putting a question mark on what we call legal justice system in a particular country or society. After that, we have political justice. By political justice, we mean that all offices and honor of the state is open to all the public, all the people, all the citizens, and there is no discrimination at all. So from the lowest stratum of the society to the highest, from the lowest income group to the highest income group, everybody is free to acquire political position. Everybody is in a position to vote, cast his vote without any fear. All the people are not only willing to participate, but there is a space for their participation. They have a right to criticize the government, and if they are not satisfied with a particular political system, they have every right to criticize that system. That all is the what we call political justice. So it is related with the political rights that are assigned in a democracy. So that is why you will find political justice, you can say, is not possible in dictatorships. Political justice is not possible in the government that are authoritarian or totalitarian. Then we have social justice. By social justice, we mean that equal social opportunities are available to all the people, and there is no discrimination on the basis of sex, creed, place of birth, caste, race, etc. So, when the principle of non-discrimination is applied in the social spaces, where the equal opportunities are available to all the people, and you will find that the social spaces are being shared by all, and there is no discrimination on the grounds like religion, creed, sex, place of birth, race, etc. So that is social justice. In the social justice, we also see that the composition of the society. If the society is the society of unequals, where there are many segments, many sections, many groups, and there are some groups who are very advanced, those who are reaping up the fruit of the development and progress of the country, but there are people who, because of certain historical and other factors, are lagging behind, and they are not in a position to reap up the fruit of development and progress of the country. Then that particular society or state has to go for leveling process. It has to go for some kind of affirmative action to promote what is called social justice, so that everybody is getting equal opportunities to excel and to develop his or her personality to the fullest extent. And after that, we have economic justice. Economic justice, in the Marxian logic, we have already discussed that economic justice becomes the core, it becomes the base, and all other aspects of society, they become the superstructure. So that is why economic justice again means that the people have equal opportunities to earn their livelihood. At the same time, economic justice means that the rich and the poor divide is not wide, and the society is not maintaining a system where rich are able to monopolize all wealth and the poor people are just living on their mercy. So a society which is reeling under inequalities, where there are some people who are monopolizing wealth and resources, and others are just living in pathetic condition. So if the wealth and the resources of the countries are not the country are not being distributed equally, then economic justice cannot be promoted. Marx, of course, he tries to identify economic justice with the abolition of private property. So the Marxian approach is that when the private property is there, which is according to them is property for exploitation, economic justice cannot be achieved. Now we are coming to the last part, that is conclusion. In the conclusion, first of all, we have to remember that justice is both a relative as well as an absolute concept. So we have already discussed that the religious traditions or the faith-based traditions, they believe that justice is absolute, eternal, perpetual, infallible, unchangeable. On the other hand, you will find that there are various schools of thought who believe that justice is relative, and it is to be understood in the light of the milieu of a particular society. What is the standard of good and bad, or what is the standard of moral and immoral in that particular society. So that is why justice is relative as well as absolute. Again, justice is a necessary condition for the enjoyment of liberty, rights, and peace. There is no doubt in it that without justice, neither you can have liberty, nor rights, nor peace. So that is why we have already discussed that justice is a precondition for peace, and it is said peace and prosperity go together. So it means the chain you have to see. If a society is just, then you will find the peace in that society, and if the peace is there, then the society will prosper. And in a society where there is peace, justice, and prosperity, people will be able to enjoy their rights and liberty. Justice must not only be done, but must also be seen to be done. This is also important, that the people should feel that they are living in a society where there is justice and the system is just, And that is why it is a justice must not only be done, but must also be seen to be done. Why? Because the sense of gross injustice prevailing in any society can tear it apart. So if the sense of gross injustice is there, it will develop, anger, outrage, frustration, disappointment with the system, with the society, with the state, with the political, organizations. And ultimately, what will happen that when the people are disappointed, frustrated, and when they are developing outrage and anger against the system, then that will create social tensions and unrest, and it will tear the societies apart. So that is why it is always said that the elections should be fair, elections should be free and fair, and people must have a trust in the process of elections. At the same time, the people must have a faith in the political institutions that are there in the society. So with this, we have already mentioned books that we have relied upon here for this particular lecture, and you can read these books. Suggested reading: Political Theory by R.L. Gupta and Political Theory Liberal and Marxist by M.P. Jain. So with this, we are going to conclude this lecture, and we are meeting in the next lecture with United Nations and human rights. We will be dealing in the next lecture. Thank you very much.